I've been wanting to make some concluding remarks to my 2 videos entitled The 13th Tribe. I'm focused on the person of Don Warden, the Black Panther, who, according to Perry Sutton, a civil rights activist of the 1960s in America, the United States, I should have said. Some people object to the use of America, the word America. We're not entitled to call ourselves Americans. Other Americans are offended when U.S. citizens call themselves Americans. I mention that because of supposed or real hostility by various other nations toward the United States. I believe that Don Warden, also known as Khalid al-Mansour, is one of those stirring up such hatred against the United States. I'm looking hard at Don Warden, a former Black Panther, who approached Perry Sutton back in the late 80s, the late 1980s, and asked Perry Sutton to use his influence to ease the way for an acquaintance who wanted to enter Harvard Law School. The Black Panther, who became Khalid al-Mansour, who is busily stirring up Muslim-Arabic hatred toward the United States worldwide, point number 1, was promoting Barack Obama 20 years ago. Point number 2, Don Warden, also known as Khalid al-Mansour, is linked to a Saudi Arabian by the name of al-Talal, said to be the 5th wealthiest man in the world.
And greetings, friends around the world, all 5 of you. All 5 of you confused friends, probably, because, wow, we've got a lot of research to do, and we've got clues that are all over the place. I'm going to confuse you even more by mentioning this. The telecom boom in the late 90s, the internet stock bubble, the late 1990s, that supposedly was burst by the Federal Reserve Board, and this by increasing interest rates deliberately to pop this bubble of overinvestment. And the reason this bubble occurred, I believe and suspect, is because of the Fed's attempts earlier to mediate the Asian crisis. Interest rates were kept artificially low to deal with the Asian crisis. Low interest rates create overinvestment somewhere, similar to the overinvestment in housing and the overinvestment in repackaged mortgages for home loans sold by Wall Street bankers around the world, mislabeled as safe investments when in fact they were very risky, ready to collapse and decline in value considerably. Back to the telecom bubble. Prices of very, very speculative, unknown, high-tech companies went sky high. That's what I noticed, and I was curious why are they so high? And it was because people had money and were trying to put it somewhere, and were being influenced to put their money in so-called tech stocks, resulting in the .com bomb. A lot of investors lost money. Well, I took a look at all of this, studied it real hard, the technical aspects of the internet equipment, and eventually had to resign myself to the realization that this is too technical for me. I'll never grasp it. As months passed, I began to realize, you know what? As actually a year or 2, 3, 4 years passed, I glanced back at it and began to suspect, not only is this too technical for me, it is and was too technical for those who were pushing it. I began to suspect that this was a whole lot of hype. The .com boom was a lot of hype, and investors were sheepish. and putting their money in these so-called businesses, which many of which were virtually shell businesses, phony businesses, masquerades. And of course, it popped and investors lost their money, and the creators of these shells had already sold at the top, pocketed the money. A lot of wealth was transferred from people saving for retirement to the pockets of hucksters, at least in some cases. Hucksters who were beyond the reach of the SEC. Hucksters overseas, hucksters with bank accounts in Switzerland and with their phony corporations set up offshore. So these are this is where I am in my looking at all this, and I've noticed that Khalid was involved in the high-tech business, and he supposedly made this Arab prince mega wealthy. I haven't yet looked into the sources of his wealth, but he claims that he started investing. This guy named Prince bin Talal started investing right out of college with very little wealth at that time. He's the cousin to the king. You know, he has connections, but the king is not going to lavish him with gifts of billions of dollars. How did the Black Panther, Don Warden, hook up with the Saudis? He went to Saudi with his friend to visit with his friend in Saudi, and happened to be in the office of I believe the king, when he was complaining about legal troubles, and Don Warden, a face unknown, in the office at the time, said, maybe I can help you with this. Maybe I can help you with your legal problems. And so the king looks up and sees, well, this is an acquaintance, a friend of my nephew, or whatever. Or, you know, somebody in the family, cousin, third cousin Leroy, you know. But, you know, part of the family. This is a friend of the family. So the king, being busy and having loads of money, he said, well, you see what you can do. See what you can do about this problem, this legal problem I'm having. And maybe Don Warden was successful in pulling some strings. And so he hooked up with the Saudi royal family. If he was on the ground floor of the telecom boom, the dot-com boom, advising people to put their money in, he could have made some people wealthy real quick. When stock values went up like 100-fold or 50 times or 20 times, obscure, know-nothing, obscure, inscrutable stocks, went from $3 up to $30 to $60 to $90 to $120, and then it all popped and collapsed down to $3 and $1, 50 cents, 19 cents, 13 cents, 5 cents, out of business. Even though the stock would do a reverse split and blah, blah, blah. But eventually, you know, what it amounts to is whoever invested in this lost all or most of their money. The wealth was transferred. It was a redistribution of wealth. If it was done fraudulently, it was theft. Plain and simple. This is a possible explanation of how some people amassed a huge fortune very quickly. I have no hard facts at this point. I'm just checking it out.